What's up, Super Nannies? I am Evasive, and today we are going to learn about women. For as long as there have been actors, there have been women characters played by men. From ancient Greece through Shakespeare's time, actually, women were always played by men. But in the thousands of years of acting history, no man has ever played a woman quite like the late, great Robin Williams. But what do I know? Do I look like someone who knows things? No, of course not. So for this video, I called in the experts. And by called in the experts, I mean that I lured 4 trans women to my house with some red wine and pizza and recorded their reactions while I made them watch the smash hit comedy of 1993, Mrs. Doubtfire. Did it hit too close to home? Was it relatable at all? Is Mrs. Doubtfire a sex symbol? All of these questions and more will definitely be answered, but first, here's the backstory. The story of this movie begins in the 1970s, when British author Anne Fine was living in the city of Edinburgh. Near her home in the Stockbridge neighborhood was a thrift store called Madame Doubtfire. Madame Doubtfire was a very well-known store in Stockbridge at the time thanks to its eccentric owner Annabella Coots, an elderly woman who could often be found sitting outside her shop, smoking from a clay pipe and surrounded by street cats. Years later, Anne Fine had the idea for a novel about a divorced dad who pretends to be an elderly woman so he can become his kid's nanny. Naming the book alias Madame Doubtfire after her favorite thrift store, the book was a modest success in Britain when it was published in 1987. A few years later, in 1990, Robin Williams' wife Marcia discovered the book and right away thought it would make a perfect movie for her husband.
I liked the idea that a man would have to play a woman and do it well enough to pass.
The best part about it all was to play someone totally unlike myself. That's why I wanted to do it.
So together, the couple pitched it to 20th Century Fox, who immediately greenlit the project because a movie where Robin Williams plays an old British woman was obviously just too good a concept to pass up. Rather than hire a bunch of outside producers, the couple decided to produce the movie themselves, even though neither of them had ever been film producers before. As producers, their first order of business was to change the setting of the book from Britain to San Francisco, hire 2 women to write the screenplay, and get the guy who made Home Alone to be the director. Then they filled out the rest of the cast with Harvey Fierstein, Pierce Brosnan, and Sally Field, who was actually going through a divorce of her own at the time. They also cast a few child actors, including 5-year-old Mara Wilson, who beat 5-year-old Blake Lively for the role as the youngest daughter. Now with all the particulars out of the way, it was time to see what happens when you dress Robin Williams up like an old woman and point a camera at him.
Excuse me? Don't say shit. Remember, it's feces. Do you find me attractive? Soft, gentle hands and a lovely feminine watch from Sears. I'm not afraid to do a little minor house cleaning. Well, I was in prison for mail fraud. Slight mixture, a little bit of gin and nothing else. That's it.
Since Robin Williams was the producer and the star, he had a lot of creative control and was basically free to do whatever he wanted while he was filming. So of course, Robin Williams improvised a lot. A lot. According to director Chris Columbus, Robin would usually do a few takes as written and then 15 to 20 takes where he made up his own lines and got other actors to do the same. To accommodate this, he had 3 cameras running anytime Robin was in a scene just so he could catch the reactions of the other actors whenever Robin improvised. Lucky for us though, some of those lines were later included on the DVD.
Tony with the little tiny arms, so tiny he can't touch himself with a...
Don't make me. All right then. No! That's it. Next time it's on target.
There's like an educational section with a latex character called Reservoir Tim.
Please help, it's been 4 weeks since I've used a wand.
Speaking of R-rated Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams later revealed that at one point during filming, he decided to test how well he actually passed as an old woman. So, naturally, he walked into a sex shop as Mrs. Doubtfire and attempted to buy a 2-sided dildo and a jar of lube.
And finally the guy realized it was me and went, "Get out of here, Robin, you asshole!" But I got the lube, which was lovely.
Filming finished in spring 1993, and Chris and Robin spent the summer sifting through dozens of hours worth of film to figure out how to make a masterpiece out of it. Their first version of the film clocked in at 157 minutes long, which was just a bit too much for a family comedy about cross-dressing. So they cut 30 minutes from the movie by trimming the improv, removing a washing machine gag, cutting a bunch of sad scenes where the parents argue, and completely removing a subplot where Mrs. Doubtfire tricks their gossipy neighbor into watering her flowers with dog piss.
Dog urine on my babies? What do you think fertilizer is? Shite.
Eventually they figured out how to make it work, and the movie was released on Thanksgiving 1993. To the surprise of nobody, it was an instant smash hit and made a wild $441 million on a $25 million budget, making it the second highest grossing film of 1993 behind Jurassic Park. A few months later, it won the Oscar for Best Makeup and the Golden Globes for Best Comedy and Best Actor, forever cementing its place as an all-time classic beloved by 90s kids and children of divorce alike. For 2 decades after that, 20th Century Fox repeatedly tried to get a sequel made, but it never worked out, with Robin Williams saying in 2010 that he'd rejected 3 different scripts they'd written. Then in April 2014, it was announced that they'd finally found an idea Robin liked, and they'd be going forward with a sequel with Chris Columbus returning as the director. Sadly though, Robin Williams passed away later that same year, and rather than do something stupid like try and recast the role, Fox decided to cancel the project and make a Broadway musical instead. There's probably a lot more to this story that we haven't seen yet though. In 2023, Chris Columbus was interviewed for the film's 30th anniversary and revealed that he's planning to make a documentary out of unseen material from the movie, saying, "There was never anyone before him, and there will never be anyone ever like Robin Williams. There is something magical about how he went about his work, and I think it would be fun to delve into it." There are roughly 972 boxes of footage from Doubtfire in a warehouse somewhere, and we would like to hire an editor to go in and look at all that footage.
There is the PG version, the PG-13 version, the R version, the NC-17 version, and the NC-17 version is the best. It is the funniest. It's a bit rough, but it is. I did love it because I'm fortunate enough to have seen all the versions of this film, and it really, there were some things that were just outrageously funny that unfortunately will never see the light of day.
Oh, you rascal.
For now though, that's the story of Mrs. Doubtfire. Personally, I think it's a pretty good movie. Solid 7, maybe 8 out of 10. But you're not watching this video to see what I have to say about it. You're watching this video to see what some random trans women I pulled off the internet have to say about it. And we're gonna get right into that. But first, here's a message from this video's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. If you're an avid watcher of video essays, chances are you already know all about Surfshark VPN. It's your best friend when it comes to watching region-locked content, guarding your data on public Wi-Fi, and protecting yourself from invasive tracking online. With all the malware and scammers out there on the web looking to invade your privacy, using the internet without a VPN at this point is like going out wearing nothing but a clear plastic raincoat and matching boots. VPNs are important, you probably know that already, but what you may not know is what makes Surfshark better than all the rest. Where other VPNs traditionally route users through a single server, Surfshark uses their exclusive Nexus system to route users through a network of all their servers together. This not only makes Surfshark faster and more stable than your average VPN, but it also allows Surfshark to rotate and randomize your IP address without disconnecting from the app. Plus, using Surfshark VPN gives you access to their exclusive multi-hop feature, which lets you manually choose where your internet traffic enters and leaves and allows you to set up your connection exactly the way you need, no matter where in the world you are. Combine that with their unlimited devices policy, antivirus protection, and alternative ID included with your VPN subscription, and it's pretty obvious why Surfshark's App Store rating looks like this.
Nice.
If you want to safeguard your data with the most unique VPN on the market, check out Surfshark. Click the link below or go to surfshark.com and use my promo code EVASIVE to get an extra 4 months of Surfshark for free. That's promo code EVASIVE to get an extra 4 months of Surfshark for free. Thank you so much to Surfshark for sponsoring. Now let's get into the video.
Oh, we shan't be telling your mother this, shan't we?
I apologize now for speaking over you guys.
You're good.
I apologize now if I
spontaneously break out into applause during this movie.
There's a lot to applaud.
This is the Citizen Kane of 1993.
They got any black people in this movie?
Oh, sorry, no.
I know it.
Not a single one.
So, in a scene that probably exists rent-free in the minds of 90s kids everywhere, Mrs. Doubtfire opens with Robin Williams showing off his vocal range while dubbing over a fake Tweety bird.
Figaro su, Figaro giù, Figaro su, Figaro giù. Della città.
Okay, I said fake, but that's not exactly true. This bit was actually created by Looney Tunes director Chuck Jones, and he made 5 minutes of animation for this sequence, even though only 1 minute was used in the movie. If you're familiar with the amount of work animation takes, I'm sure you know how ridiculous that is.
First law of animation is you can't fall if you don't look down.
Anyway, Robin Williams' character is a voice actor named Daniel Hillard, and the movie immediately establishes that he's a good guy by having him quit his job because he refuses to promote smoking to children.
Oh, I will not do this. I cannot. Oh, what a foul way for a bird to die. I don't want to get big cancer. No, my lungs are blackened.
Here we go again. Cut. Roll it back. If you want a paycheck, you stick to the script. If you want to play Gandhi, then do it on somebody else's time.
And then I've got to do what I've got to do.
Can I propose a drinking game where we take a drink every time Robin Williams embodies a different character?
In the words of Porky Pig,
Piss off, Lou.
Already finished.
We're gonna be destroyed by the end of it.
Then we get to meet Daniel's kids, Lydia, Christopher, and Natalie. As Daniel walks them home from school, we learn that today is Christopher's 12th birthday, but he can't have a party because mom grounded him for bad grades. Daniel doesn't care what his wife says though, and decides to throw him a party anyway by renting a whole petting zoo in front of their house, which doesn't have a front yard.
Instead of a petting zoo in front of their house? Yeah.
Where does that
block traffic? Well, this was common in the 90s. You just rent a petting zoo for the day.
Did you do that a lot?
Yeah, before the internet, we had to find ways to entertain ourselves.
The neighbor snitches on him though, and now we meet Sally Field's character, Miranda. Much like the Miranda from Sex and the City, Miranda is a responsible, career-minded woman with a type A personality who is basically the exact opposite of her husband. So when she comes home and sees the party getting out of hand, she shuts it down and sends everyone home. This of course leads to her and Daniel getting into a shouting match in front of the kids, which ends with her saying she wants to get a divorce.
It's over! It's over!
So how do we all feel about Sally Field's character?
Is that Sally Fields?
That's Sally Fields, yeah.
She hates petting zoos, and she
We
hates
hate her,
fun.
right?
I love the bob. I think she's really eating this hairstyle.
It's a good
I just
hairstyle.
don't understand why she would have this conversation with the kids in the house. Like, this is mad inappropriate. Y'all talking about divorce.
That's what I'm saying. I've seen a lot of Mom from Mrs. Doubtfire apologia the last few years. She's not a good character. I'm sorry.
Now kicked out of the house, Daniel goes to stay with his gay makeup artist brother Victor, played by everyone's favorite gay actor, Harvey Weinstein. Firestein. I meant Firestein.
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein is a great actor.
Is that Harvey Weinstein?
That's Harvey Weinstein.
That's Harvey Weinstein.
That's Harvey Weinstein.
Wow.
He was in this
God.
and Independence Day, where he was also gay.
What does the antenna of the phone do?
What does the antenna on a phone do?
It helps.
Do you remember?
Was that like aesthetic?
Do you like remember 9/11 and stuff?
No.
Okay.
No, she was born.
And now it's time for the divorce court scene, where an emotional Daniel is told he's only allowed to see his kids once a week until he can find a job and a good place to live. It's a very well scripted and well acted scene, but the trans women watching were too distracted to fully appreciate it.
It's 1 day a week. That's not enough. I have to be with my children.
Okay, looking at Robin Williams though, do you think he's got, you know, are the bones there? You know what I mean?
The bones?
Like, you know, is he gonna make a good woman? Is my question. Like,
Oh, I think so. Fast.
yeah, he's Twinkie, right?
You know what?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Robin Williams is like a biological twink.
Then after a sad scene where Daniel says bye to his kids, he goes to meet with his court liaison who sets him up with a meeting at the local employment office.
I've taken the liberty of making an appointment for you.
Oh, so he becomes a nanny for the kids.
Yeah.
Okay, it's actually starting to make sense.
I think he's already trans, and he's just looking for an excuse to become an elderly Scottish woman.
Why most people transition.
I mean, it's a perfectly reasonable response to the situation.
Before Daniel decides to change genders, however, he first gets a job working in the storage room at a local TV studio. Now cut to the other side of town, where we get to see pre-007 Pierce Brosnan making a move on Miranda.
She already moved on? I'm not feeling her.
I think that she's like the reason that misogyny exists now. Like a lot of young men grew up watching Mrs. Doubtfire, and now they're like in the Proud Boys or whatever.
But Mrs. Doubtfire, the Proud Boys pipeline.
It's very real.
I'd love to get reacquainted.
He's not doing it for me, but I do get it.
Pierce Brosnan?
Yeah.
He's like 90s hot.
Yeah.
I just think she's a cis straight woman, and she's horny for the first time in a while because she's not dating an egg anymore.
True.
You know what I mean? All kinds of weirdness comes.
She finally gets a real man.
Yeah.
Later that night, Miranda barges into Daniel's very messy apartment to pick up the kids and informs him that she's about to put out a newspaper ad for a nanny. Daniel asks to see the ad, and when Miranda isn't looking, he secretly messes with the phone number.
You can see him get the idea to be trans right then.
That's true.
I made that face too when I decided.
Oh wow, it's a little devious, little stinker face.
Then in a scene that would never work today because of caller ID, Daniel uses his voice talents to repeatedly call his ex-wife and pretend to be terrible nanny applicants. And now here's a joke about trans women.
I have 2 girls and a boy.
Oh, a boy. I don't work with the males, because I used to be one.
We all caught that.
Wow, he has trans people on the brain.
And now, finally, the moment you've all been waiting for.
Hello?
Hello. I'm calling in regards to the ad I read in the paper.
Oh, the voice is eating.
Yeah, right?
Oh, she's eating that voice.
Say what you will about this movie, but Mrs. Doubtfire, the character, is serving, you know? Like, she is fish.
The vocal training?
Yeah, it's paying off.
Miranda agrees to interview Mrs. Doubtfire for the position, so the next day, Daniel goes over to his brother's house to get help transitioning as fast as humanly possible.
Could you make me a woman?
Honey, I'm so happy.
Oh wait, were we joking about the Harvey Weinstein or that's really him?
No, that's not. Oh, that's not Harvey Weinstein. Oh,
okay.
It's easy to get Drew's name Harvey mixed up.
I was like, what the fuck?
Now for the next few minutes, we get to see Daniel pretend to be different kinds of women. This of course makes no sense because Daniel already introduced himself to Miranda as Mrs. Doubtfire, but who cares? Here's Robin Williams doing an impression of an old Jewish woman.
Oh, it was such a shanda. I should never buy Gribnus from a moil. It's so chewy.
Then after a makeover montage set to Luck Be a Lady by Frank Sinatra, Daniel's disguise is finally complete. Later that night, he goes over to his former house for the interview, and the audience gets to see Mrs. Doubtfire for the first time.
Hello. Mrs. Hillard, I presume?
Yes, I'm Miranda Hillard.
You Virginia Doubtfire.
Yes. Won't you please come in?
Thank you, dear. And these must be the cherubs.
This is Robin Williams' voice?
Yeah, he's very good. She's very good. Sorry, I forget.
And who's this young lady?
This is Lydia.
Hello, Lydia.
Lydia's onto something. She knows. She knows.
She does.
They can always tell.
She's like, I'm like,
Lydia's, yeah, Lydia's transvestigating.
She's gonna out her. She's gonna out her, look.
She knows.
Would you care to have a cup of tea?
I'd love that.
It's right in here.
Oh, really?
They're gonna fuck, right, in the movie?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but
It's a
he
meat
romance
fuck. Yeah.
romance his wife.
He fuck his wife in Mrs. Doubtfire suit.
So Sally feels is bisexual?
No, but she'll make an exception for Mrs. Doubtfire. I mean, she's
everyone would
with
do that.
Riz. Look at that.
To us.
So Miranda gives Mrs. Doubtfire the job, and now we are introduced to the best side character in the movie, the bus driver.
Cold night, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Hope you have something nice and warm to go home to.
She should be with him. He was so sweet.
Yeah, they'd make a good
The
couple.
court would give him the kids.
They can raise the kids together.
Mrs. Doubtfire arrives home just in time for a visit from the court liaison.
Be right there, Mrs. Selner.
So nice. I don't have to save face anymore, Mrs. Selner.
Mrs. Selner, how are you?
big girl.
Your sister is English?
Oh, she's half English. She's not a very good housekeeper, but she makes a fabulous cup of English tea.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I would adore a good cup of English tea.
Girl, get out of my house. Where's what?
I'll go get her.
Sis! Oh, sis! When you first transition, and you have to be like, oh, I'll go get my sister. She's right in the other room. You need to quickly transition and then untransition a bunch of times.
Miss Hillard?
After school the next day, Mrs. Doubtfire arrives for her first evening on the job. And as the kids' new nanny, her first order of business is getting them to stop watching the Dick Van Dyke Show and start doing their homework.
No. We always watch Dick Van Dyke.
Oh, yeah. You know kids and their Dick Van Dyke Show. You can't peel them away from the Dick Van Dyke Show.
I had forgotten a lot of my lines and a lot of the movie, and I could not figure out why people kept coming up to me and asking me if I liked Dick Van Dyke.
Mrs. Doubtfire sends the kids up to their rooms, and then she attempts to cook dinner, which is something that Daniel apparently never learned how to do.
Girl, she could have just learned how to cook.
Hello?
She could have done this before. She could have practiced. She like got a whole woman's suit and she can't learn how to cook.
Like at least pasta? Every T-girl can make pasta.
Oh my god, it's clotted.
No! Her woman's suit is burning up.
Oh! My first day as a woman, I'm getting hot flashes.
Yeah.
Rather than risk burning down the house, Mrs. Doubtfire decides to do what every newly divorced dad does best and order dinner from a fancy restaurant on Uber Eats. Then she pulls a steamed ham's trick and passes off the food as her own cooking.
Dinner is served, madam.
Lovely.
And finally, after a hard night's work, Mrs. Doubtfire leaves the house and takes the bus back to her apartment.
Well, my lady, it's a pleasure to see you again.
She got a man quick.
Look how into it he is.
Yeah.
So,
Oh.
I like that Mediterranean-looking women.
See what I'm saying?
Natural. Healthy.
He's horny as fuck.
So, this is the last time in the movie we see the bus driver, but in the original cut of the film, there was actually one more scene with him where he asks Mrs. Doubtfire out, and she responds by coming out of the closet.
I'm a guy.
Well, I still think you're beautiful, you know. What can I tell you?
Thank you.
Well,
After the hairy leg shot, the movie transitions to a fun little work montage set to Dude Looks Like a Lady by Aerosmith. That song is copyrighted though, so instead of playing it as is, I'm going to do a hilarious callback and use the cover version from It's Pat the movie.
Dude looks like a lady. Dude looks like a lady. Dude looks like a lady. Dude looks like a lady.
A few weeks pass, and one night Miranda asks Mrs. Doubtfire to stay late so she can go on a date with Pierce Brosnan's character Stu. Now cut to later that night, and we find Mrs. Doubtfire helping Lydia practice for a spelling bee scene that ended up being cut out of the movie.
Is there a spelling
Oh,
test?
this is where she's gonna get found out, right?
Oh god.
Because they see her standing up to pee.
Yes. Oh my god.
Lady, come on. We gotta call the cops. We gotta dial 911 now.
Why?
He's half man, half woman.
What?
He saw
She's got
all of his
everything.
dad's dick.
I'm not who you think I am.
Yeah, no shit.
Watch your mouth, young man.
Dad?
Yep, just that, up to shenanigans.
Classic dad.
Got him.
It's just a mask. And this is a bodysuit. I didn't have any operations or anything.
It's been a week. That's bullshit though. I want a recut of this movie where he physically transitions.
So the scene ends with a hug and the kids agreeing to keep their dad's identity a secret. Before we move on though, here's the R-rated version of this scene.
Lydia, we gotta call the cops. We gotta call 911. What's the matter with you? Mrs. Doubtfire. She's a freak. She has a dick. She's peeing up. She's standing pee. Can you do that?
No, I can't do that.
Well, it's not possible.
Everyone just calm down.
You're getting the balls.
Now cut to the next day, where we see Daniel working his other job at the TV studio and accidentally complaining to the CEO about how boring the educational show is. Also, here's the only non-white people in the movie.
The reptile-like?
I was waiting for the black character.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess there's.
Here we go.
There's one.
Wait a minute. A twofer.
Yeah.
We getting all the diversity in one clip, one scene.
They want to just get it out of the way at once.
Later that day, Mrs. Doubtfire and Miranda have a heart-to-heart that begins with Miranda asking Mrs. Doubtfire what happened to her husband. And for this bit, Robin Williams came up with at least 13 different causes of death for Mr. Doubtfire. Here's my personal favorite.
'Twas the drink that killed him.
How awful. He was an alcoholic.
Oh, no, dear. He was hit by a Budweiser truck. First time in America, too. This Bud's for you. Oh, God. So it's quite literally the drink that killed him.
Oh, God.
After that, Stu invites the family to the country club pool, and when they arrive, Pierce Brosnan's hairless stunt double does a front flip off the diving board.
She about to go swimming?
Yeah, she gets fully nude in this scene.
Sorry, no, Mrs. Doubtfire does not get fully nude in this scene. Instead, she has no choice but to hand over her kids and ex-wife to Stu and have a pathetic drink alone in the corner. By the way, if you listen to Chris Columbus talk about this scene in an interview, you can tell he was really proud of this one.
Here you are, you're divorced, you really love your kids, you want to be with your kids, but you're unfortunately divorced, your wife doesn't love you anymore, and you're dressed as a 60-year-old woman. Here comes the new James Bond walking into their lives. The perfect guy. There's nothing wrong with him. He loves the kids, he loves her, he's going to give them a better life than Daniel Hillard ever could. What's more frustrating and more upsetting for Robin as Mrs. Doubtfire?
This whole pool scene is so good, actually, that the trans women watching were completely captivated and didn't say anything the entire time. Not even when the movie made a creepy old trans woman joke.
Start over the line, please.
It's on me.
Thanks.
Anyway, after Mrs. Doubtfire throws a lime at Stu's head, the movie cuts to Daniel alone in the TV studio doing an improvised song about a brontosaurus.
Bum, 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 bum. I eat wood. Dinner, 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 dinner. It tastes good. Dinner, 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 dinner. No meat. Big feet. I eat wood. Boom, 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 boom.
Then the CEO appears out of nowhere and immediately offers to meet with Daniel to discuss giving him his own show. At no point does he mention that he knows Daniel from his voice acting work, so we have to assume that this right here is the only reason why he's offering him this job.
Dun, 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 dun. It's a dinner show. Dun, dun, dun.
It is easy for men to get jobs, y'all. I do think about putting down the needle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just until I get a job.
No.
Yeah. Get a low-level janitorial position at a television studio.
Exactly.
And then
insult the CEO.
You gotta, you're a celebrity.
Later that week, Miranda announces that Friday is her birthday and Stu wants to take the whole family out to dinner, including Mrs. Doubtfire. But uh-oh, they made dinner reservations at the exact same time at the exact same restaurant as Daniel's meeting with the CEO. Whoa, what are the odds of that? Wow.
Oh, because she has the dinner meeting there with the guy.
Yeah.
See, that isn't that where she gets found out?
Just gotta mess up the business thing and get outed.
We should pause it. No, you're gonna miss vital Mrs. Doubtfire information.
Daniel tries to reschedule the meeting, but it's impossible, leaving him with no choice but to attend the dinner as both himself and Mrs. Doubtfire. Of course, this is all completely unrealistic because the Academy Award-winning Mrs. Doubtfire makeup took so long to put on that Robin Williams would watch entire movies during the process.
Fee Neal, who had done makeups before, like long makeups on different people, she came up with the idea that since you have to face the mirror, and since I couldn't just fall asleep because I had to keep my face moving all the time, they have to test it and make sure that you go through a full range of motion. She would put a TV up here with a videotape player so you could see it in the mirror. Bad for subtitle movies, but great to watch films.
So on Friday night, Mrs. Doubtfire and the family meet Stu at the restaurant for Miranda's birthday dinner. California didn't ban smoking in restaurants until 1995, so Mrs. Doubtfire asks to have everyone seated in the smoking section so they can be as far away as possible from the CEO. This of course makes no sense because from the very first scene in the movie, Daniel is shown to be very passionate about not exposing children to cigarette smoke. But who cares? It's time for 15 straight minutes of wacky costume change shenanigans.
There you go, all right.
Yes. Oh, and your bag too, ma'am.
Drop it. Oh, I'm very sorry, dear. It's my medicine. I have to go take my medicine now.
Well, we have water at the table.
I can't take it orally, dear.
Period. The needles are in the bag, injected, girl.
Mrs. Doubtfire buys some time by calling the restaurant in Daniel's voice to say that he's stuck in traffic, and then while the rest of the family goes to the bathroom, Robin Williams tries to get Pierce Brosnan to break character with some R-rated improv.
She's got a power tool in the bedroom, dear. It's her personal jackhammer. She could break a sidewalk with that thing.
Oh my God, the language that came out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And you were all dismissed when we came to do the close-ups. He just unleashed the most bluest, the craziest. And it was
Very
on my
specific,
close-up
yeah.
that he went to town. He just pulled out all the
I
stops.
hope you bring cocktail sauce. She's got the crabs, dear, and I don't mean Dungeness.
When the family returns, Mrs. Doubtfire runs to the women's bathroom to quickly change back into a man and then stashes the woman's suit behind the toilet.
I've done an outfit change in the bathroom.
But have you detransitioned in the bathroom?
Not as a she-her. They, them? Maybe.
Daniel runs out of the bathroom and quickly enters man mode by knocking back 3 glasses of scotch in a row during a business meeting. Now drunk, Daniel rushes back to the bathroom to become a woman again. You know, in hindsight, maybe it would have been better if I'd had gender fluid people watch this movie instead.
You need to be
You
so
sh-
demographically specific.
You should have had people who dress in woman suits to be closer to their kids watch Mrs. Doubtfire.
So Mrs. Doubtfire returns to the table for an improvised fake teeth gag. After that, she changes back into Daniel to drink more scotch. Then Daniel changes back into Mrs. Doubtfire again, sneaks into the kitchen to dump cayenne pepper all over Stu's food because she's petty, and then drunkenly stumbles back to the wrong table.
Oh, sorry I'm late, but after all those scotches, I had to piss like a racehorse.
What is going on?
Why in God's name are you dressed like a woman?
Sloppy.
Oh, you're hot.
This is non-binary 101. Do not do this.
You're out it.
I'd like you to meet the host of your new show.
Host?
Euphigenia Doubtfire, dear.
The man
Period.
is a genius.
And this is how you eat it up.
It's true.
To come up with this on the spot, genius.
Before Daniel can show off his cross-gender acting skills, though, Stu starts choking on his overspiced food. Not wanting to commit third-degree murder, Mrs. Doubtfire rushes across the restaurant to perform the Heimlich maneuver and accidentally pulls the mask down in the process.
Ah.
Oh no. She's clocked now. She detransitioned right there in public.
I know, to publicly detransition.
In seconds.
She'll be on Blair White's podcast next.
The whole time you would. The whole time!
I only did it because it was a trend.
She's a trender. We can agree, Mrs. Doubtfire is a trender.
Confused, shocked, and angry, Miranda leaves with the kids while Daniel and Stu have a very awkward handshake.
Yeah.
Back in divorce court, Daniel defends his actions by passionately explaining he just loves his children too much to live apart from them, but the judge doesn't buy it and awards full custody to Miranda. Sometime later, the family is shown shucking corn and talking about how much they miss when Dad was a woman, and it's right at that moment that they hear Mrs. Doubtfire's voice coming from the living room. The family walks in and discovers that Mrs. Doubtfire is on TV now with her very own Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood style kids show.
Oh, she's paving the way for the dolls.
She really
We're on
is.
TV.
Mm-hmm. The first trans woman to be famous.
That puppet is also trans, by the way. It was a breakthrough.
Puppets are non-binary, I feel like.
All of them?
Yeah. Right?
More time passes and Miranda finally works up the courage to make an unannounced visit to the TV studio. After wrapping for the day, Daniel and Miranda meet on set to discuss putting their differences aside for the sake of their kids.
I don't want to hurt our children.
See, what's sweet about this moment, though, is they're finally talking.
The moral of the story is don't have a petting zoo in your home.
It's true.
And in the final scene of the movie, Daniel shows up at the house as himself. He and Miranda aren't getting back together, but she's agreed to let him take the children for a few hours every day after school. And as Daniel leaves, Mrs. Doubtfire addresses the camera to deliver a heartfelt message to children of divorce.
Sometimes they get back together, and sometimes they don't, dear. And if they don't blame yourself. Just because they don't love each other anymore doesn't mean that they don't love you. But if there's love, dear, those are the ties that bind.
So
what an
sweet.
inspirational movie.
It really is. It's such a great message about divorce and also dressing up in a woman's suit to be closer to your kids.
And how did you like working with me?
How did I like working with you? Well, you're disturbed, really. What can I say? Better late than never.
You're no great shakes yourself in the
I've
morning.
seen you looking with envy at my shoes and my bra.
Waiting
even
for
though
you all
I
that
know
time.
You
I mean, I don't know
haven't
what you
seen
do
me
for
that way,
4
but
hours that makes
I can sense it in your
Fine.
eyes.
So that was Mrs. Doubtfire. Is it a classic? Yes. Has it aged well? Mostly. Does it have anything to do with trans women?
Personally, I don't even see anything trans about this whole movie. It's a total family goofy movie about dads and dressed like a woman. And it's touching. It's also very touching.
Yeah, of course, in place of having shards of your bones cut out and shit and going on hormones, he puts on a latex bodysuit. But he fucking transitions in this. I think it is a trans movie. He has to adjust his little mannerisms and things when he's in public so that he's, not giving himself away. He catches himself, burping in a really masculine way or, suddenly in a situation where he has to completely revert back to Daniel. It is the inverse of the trans experience in that he's not really Mrs. Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire is the character and Daniel's the real guy. But there's enough there that I think you could totally read it as some sort of an allegory.
Okay. I don't want to give him too much credit because who really knows? But I definitely think it could have been more disrespectful, and I wonder if he played a really big hand on why it wasn't. Something about it feels like he had a big part of it being as good as it was, but also just not super disrespectful and crazy.
Robin Williams is a very good actress. I'm sure the transphobia was just what was required for the 1990s. I feel like there's some really obvious plot holes, but I guess the point is she was a man the whole time, so she wouldn't think about that.
Yeah, it is a movie about the idea of passing, but I also think that it sets a very high standards, and they do that. Passing is kind of lying a little. It's like a trick.
I think that the whole story about passing and the way that people are treated when you are considered passing there's something to be told in that story there. I think it was very well written. I think the acting was great. I think that there's a lot of small little undertones that can go unseen. I think there's a lot that you can read into it's just really fun.
But I feel like the average person watching this, especially in 1993, they're so disconnected. You're not thinking about social issues or, minorities or whatever when you're watching a Robin Williams comedy. And I didn't fucking think about any of that shit. I was just like, haha, it's funny because he in woman's suit, but then he used man voice. Uh-oh. You're just more lizard-brained when you watch Mrs. Doubtfire, which is one of its strengths. I don't know.
I am Evasive. Thank you so much for watching. Please follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd. And if you want to see the full recording of the trans woman watching Mrs. Doubtfire, or if you just want to support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon, link in the description below. And as always, please let me know in the comments what other movies you want to see me cover next. Also, on an unrelated note, the war in Gaza is still going on and there are countless people who still need help. A good number of people have reached out to me directly asking for support, so I've created a spreadsheet with a list of underfunded GoFundMe campaigns for you to donate to. The link is in the description below. Please check it out and donate a bit if you're able to. And now finally, to end this video, I went to San Francisco earlier this year and I took some pictures in front of the Mrs. Doubtfire house. So I guess I'll just show you those. Special thank you to my top tier patrons, Alexis Angiano, Andrea Morton, Andrew Coro, Andrew C., Brendan Crane, Bruno, Caleb Fortner, Carl, Caroline Alba, Courtney, Doc Davis, Dylan Zahner, Eric Vasilevsky, Gary V-Dub, Indigenous Native Little Bird, Jane Elwood Strawberry, Kit, Lucas Probably, Marina Plays Bass, Matthew J., Mickey Looney, Pigeon Rose, Pooh Bear Thought, and Richard Brown.
That's a true story.